Thanks, Regina. I just wanted to spill a few beans about Anya and mention that she herself has been discovering some of her own mediumship talents lately. And that's one of the reasons that I've invited her here today. Um, would you like to share a little joke that you were told from the other side last week? Unmute yourself.
So this was inspired by Dan, who mentioned during his talk last week that he's in touch with many mediums who have been reporting to him that Robin Williams pops in and says hello. So that inspired me to do a one-on-one meditation to connect with him after Dan's talk. And I asked him, first of all, he showed up with his head on a Pez dispenser. And then I asked him for a joke, and the joke he gave me, and anyone who knows me, I'm terrible at telling jokes, so I really did not generate this myself. He said, "Why did the rabbit cross the road?" And I asked him why, and he said, "To get to the other side," like spooky fingers. And then he gave me some pretty amazing validation signs after that. It was pretty awesome. He's a great communicator.
I need to add something to that because he appears all over the place. I have another friend, Oliver, who lives in the Bay Area, who's very much into all of this. And he lives in the Marin area where Robin lived. And he called me up one day. He didn't know that I had really been doing a lot of work with Robin Williams and the others. We talked about other things when we were working. And he goes, "I just have to share this with you." Just came out of nowhere. He said, "I was going through the tunnel that Robin would go through to get to his place." And he said, all of a sudden, Robin Williams jumped into my car and started telling me fart jokes. And he goes, "Is this real?" And I go, "Oh yeah, that's totally real." He said, "It just blew me away." And because Oliver is very receptive and very intuitive, he could pick it all up. And it's all about lightening up. It's all about not taking life so seriously. That old saying of Heath Ledger, "Why so serious?" And that's another story about Heath Ledger in terms of finding. That's another story. But yes, to add to that, Robin comes in. I mean, there was one time with Regina and I, when after my daughter passed in 2011, I was very broken. And so she invited me up to her beautiful place up in northwestern Nebraska. And I went up there quite a bit in the first few years. And one night, her husband was out in the family area watching TV, and she and I were in the extra library room where I was sleeping. And all of a sudden, Robin started coming through, both of us. And we were laughing so hysterically. Jerry at one point said he thought he'd better come in to see what was wrong. He couldn't believe it. But it was 40 minutes of hilarity. And Dan actually has some recording of Robin entertaining us. I would love to hear that because it's really to come in and to lighten the load and to really spread the knowledge that we never die. He has come and helped me with suicides that I've worked with. I worked with a Japanese woman whose husband had taken his life a year ago, but it still was in the house. His 2-year-old had found him, and he was still in the house. And Robin just showed right up and said, "I know what it's like," because he'd done the same thing Robin had done. Robin not only is there to be the comedian, but he is also there to help, as so many of them are. And I mean, like Christopher Reeve, he said he would never put a Superman suit on unless it was really important. But when there's been a child or some circumstance of somebody that needs help who's just passed, he will don his Superman outfit and go and help the child or the person or whatever, usually a younger person, to help them. And this is, it's all around us. When my daughter passed, she had a habit of standing in the doorway in my room and say, "Can I just tell you?" And when I was in the first months of mourning, she'd appear regularly in the doorway and go, "Can I just tell you?" And then, of course, that would start me being very emotional. And she goes, "Mom, I'm right here. I'm right here." Even with the ability for her to go to vast areas of expanded consciousness, she could still be right here. And like Regina was saying, and I know you all know that, it's that continuity of life, I think, that brings us into a higher level of understanding and wisdom within ourselves and our own reasonings for what we've chosen to do and what we've chosen to experience. There was one time with Patrick Swayze and with just what was with Patrick Swayze, when Regina had visited me out here and we had gone to the store or something and we're pulling up in front of the house, and all of a sudden he is behind us in the back seat, pulls himself to the front and goes, "What are we doing? How's everybody? How are things?" And we both heard him at the same time. And that to me is just delightful. We had a trip when Mary Beth and Regina and I were going back down to Denver because Mary Beth was flying home. So we were making the trip from where Regina lived to Denver. And we were taking this kind of back route. And all the way down, JD and Robin, and I think it was Patrick too, were just messing with us. And we all could hear them. And then we started talking about this airstrip that John said, I used to fly in on this airstrip when I went to this one really good restaurant in this town where you're going to, and you have to go there because they have the best chicken, fried chicken, and whatever else. And sure enough, they took us right there. It was just...
yeah, he had directed us straight to that place. And it was a Mexican place, and we thought, okay, there's no way this is going to have fried chicken. And sure enough, that was their main thing on the menu, was fried chicken. And it was near the airstrip.
Anyway.
It just keeps going.
One more little Robin Williams story. The first time that, Jeanne, that I was with you and Robin came through, I had a little dialogue with him. Just FYI, here in Marin County, there's a main traffic tunnel that was named after Robin after he died. It's called the Robin Williams Tunnel now. So I said, Robin, every time I go through that tunnel, I think of you. And he says, "Oh, the tunnel." He says, "I like to stand in the middle of it with my arms outstretched and watch the cars go through me." And that's how I knew.
That's a reference. And Dan, that's a reference to his movie, What Dreams May Come.
Oh.
And his daughter, Zelda, I just read an article with her the other day. It said that was her favorite film of her dad's. It reminded her of him the most, of being who he was that wonderful movie, What Dreams May Come.
Yeah.
So,
I believe he said that participating in that film was one of the turning points in his own spiritual education, as it were.
Yeah. He gave me really great validation signs, like two sets of them. I asked him to tell me a fact about himself that I don't already know, that isn't widely known about him, but is Googleable if you search hard enough. And he said, "Look for me in the owl," as in the animal, the owl. And so after my meditation, I searched and it did not come right up. I had to really kind of dig for it, but I found one blog post that had a picture of Robin and some cast and crew for a movie and an owl between everyone standing there. And he was making a funny face at the owl, but there was not a lot written about that. It was just like the one, which is really the specifications I gave him. And then later that day, my partner and I came across 3 owls, not real live owls, but 2 were lampposts in the shape of owls. And then I didn't see the last one. My partner went to see a concert in San Francisco and met a guy who introduced himself, and he had an owl tattoo on his neck. And then the second, which is a whole heap of validation, if you ask me, but the other, I asked him for a formal validation sign to validate that we truly connected. And he said, upside down car. And so the next morning, I thought to myself, that'll be interesting. And the next morning, I was just kind of scrolling through my Instagram, and I came across an NPR post of a news article from 3 days earlier. So it was old. of a guy standing on an upside down car in floodwaters, raging floodwaters, getting rescued. It was a video of him on his upside down car. And so whenever that happens and validation signs come to pass, I always give him a big thank you and a wave of gratitude. So, but he was very energetic, and I saw sort of a lot of splotches of just like hot pinks and hot greens and hot colors, like a Jackson Pollock painting. I don't know if you guys have experienced that also with him, but very energetic.
Thank you very much, Dan and Regina and Jeanne. It was just a fascinating time to be together. So thank you. So I've got Dan's new book here. I just finished reading it, and gosh, it was great. It was thought provoking and so well written. Great questions to be able to really think about and ponder. And anybody who has a spiritual group, there's great questions in there to really kind of help promote that kind of learning. I think the one question that I just thought was fascinating is you talk about the word afterlife, and you talk about it being, could the so-called afterlife be the main act? Which I loved, and I would love to hear all of your opinions on what your thought process is about that.
Just a quick response, if I may. I think it comes down to the question of whether we are bodies who have souls or souls who have bodies. Put it that way.
And
That's
if
a
I
good one,
may,
Megan.
Please go ahead.
you know, my ideas of spirit and the spirit world and the universe and the galaxies changes all the time. The more I'm shown, the more I understand, the more I can grow. For me right now, I just see this as part of our creation. I don't see it being better or worse than. There's such an interesting psychological need for us to sort and classify to help us understand. Well, if this is over here, then this means this is over here, and this means this is over here. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it does limit us at times, because while we're in the physical world, we are somewhat limited to this reality that we're in consensus with. And Richard said something last week, if I can remember that thought for a moment, about that had to do with realities and everything. And I just lost that thought because I do distract myself sometimes. But the thing is that he said we are creators, which I totally agree with. We are the ones that write our script. We write our stories, whether it's through the karmic belief system or not, whether we say we're reincarnating or we're incarnating, we are creating ourselves. And that is incredibly freeing. It could be particularly daunting, but if we realize that we've been at this forever, we have the wherewithal to work through all this. And one of the things he did say, I'm coming back to it now, is that, if we reincarnated, why don't we remember things? And the thing is, we'd get totally confused. I mean, if we had an open channel, if we had 158 channels open to every 158 lives simultaneously as a 3-year-old, which some do until that starts to narrow down, or as a 20-year-old, we go crazy. That's one of the things that I like so much about the SRT work from Robert Dessler, is that he works to help us focus in on here. We're in this body, let's be in this body, let's be in this world, and live it as best we can. With Seth, when I first started studying Seth all those years ago, it was all about expansion and knowing that they're multidimensional beings in a multidimensional universe and world, etc. But now, with the work that he's been coming through in the teachings that I've been doing with classes, he says, now I want you to know how to live here. You know all that, but now you're here. Stop trying to leave. And when I work with clients, I hate this. Why? It's like, shut up already. It's like, you chose to be here. Nobody forced us to be here. But we forget that. We get, unhappy. We get angry. The thing is, we're here for reasons. And part of that is discovering. It's all about evolving. And we're not here to save the world. We're here to evolve. And if that also includes us doing work to help humanity, that's fantastic. But we also need to move through the idea of being responsible for other people, because we simply aren't. We're only responsible for our creation and what we do within it. Oh, so and to just make it as short as I can. So we're in this incredible consciousness of energy. When we in this realm we talk about Krishna and God and Mary and Jesus and Joseph and Hindu and all this, because that's our paradigm here in this space. Other realities, other places, other energy fields, they don't have that because that's not their modus operandi. But I feel like everything is valid, everything is important. Some places are more challenging than others. And I've learned in my old age, because I just turned 75, woohoo, I made it, is that it's all, as we think, it's all going on at once. And we jump from one, I've used the term energy bands, one frequency to the next as we see fit to what we want to learn and what we want to do. Of course, it's way beyond what we can quantify, but that's what we do the best we can.
I was wondering, Jeanne mentioned something about SRT and Robert Dressler, and I'm thinking about healing for those of us who are here. So does that relate?
SRT, Mary Beth's the expert on that. It's a spiritual release therapy, if I got that correctly. And Robert Dressler, and he was a Unity minister, and he wrote this huge volume of material to help people who weren't necessarily intuitive, but still wanted to, work on themselves. And so he has this big, huge charting process, which is a little verbose, and he's on the other side, and we've been talking, and he says, yeah, I need to cut it down a little bit. But he was working primarily for those people who aren't intuitive like you are. And the reason I use parts of it, and Mary Beth and I work a lot together with that, is that it's a guiding tool to go in and remove the actual matrix energies, the energy itself, the patterns, to move those things out of a person's energetic field. And it shifts. That's primarily where I work now. And what I call archetypes and parts of consciousness, and move those out into what I see as the healing room. And it's just that's the tool that I use the best. Everybody has their own modalities, but and there's a lot of groups and people that do that. And I use a simplified version of it because I'm very intuitive and I can see the things. I can see the parts, but not everybody can. So I don't know if that helps.
First, Dan, thank you for your website, and Regina and Jeannie. That was so dramatic, that Challenger episode. Had my heart nearly stopping. That was amazing, and thank you. Now, my question is, where you mentioned that people with Alzheimer's can still have that confusion. I'm wondering what's happening, that we are expected to release this trauma in the physical. What is happening with the doctors and the spirit people? I thought they had like hospitals or something to treat this sort of thing. Is it overwhelmed, or what's happening there?
That's a good question. From my side of things, first of all, one of the words that Seth has encouraged us in our group not to use is, in terms of being a favorable place, is the astral world. Because the astral world is really, from what he has, what his teachings are, really the dredges of those energies that are lower frequencies that can't move beyond into the other realms. And it's really congested because people in their consciousness really aren't awakened enough to move from it. And that really is part of that karmic wheel that just repeats and repeats. There definitely are all sorts of available beings and therapies and groups and healing beings on the other side. But sometimes a spirit chooses to work through their stuff here because it actually frees them up faster than if they go over there and do it, which might seem like counterintuitive. Or it just may be what their choice is in their own creation that they want to experience if they have someone in the physical who would like to do that with them. Because then, for me, having helped people, it's like Regina had said, it's taught me tremendous things. So it's probably any one of those reasons. It's, what do we want and how do we want to do it?
And thank you all very much. I host an automatic writing group, and several of the members are here today. And I'm also a handwriting examiner, and so I'm particularly interested. I understand that you get automatic writing, and so you've talked about Robin Williams. So specifically, I know what his handwriting looks like. So is the writing that you get actually in that person's handwriting, or can you talk about that part of it?
Well, I don't write anything out by hand much. It's all computer.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have that comparison. And the automatic writing, for me, when I started it many years ago, but now I just a channel. So it's not like they don't have to work so hard to try to make my hand move. I mean, I never had to experience that. It was just, boom, they're in, let's get to it. That's been my experience.
And mine has been a little varied as far as I realize that much older that I had been doing automatic writing probably most of my life, not recognizing it. And it wasn't until much later on. And then I would still do the writing, and my writing did change. Did it actually go to looking like someone else's as far as another entity? I'm really not sure. But I'll try to make this in 2 minutes, this quick thing. For the last, just for almost 2.5, maybe 3 weeks, there was an entity who was driving me crazy. I didn't realize who it was, didn't know anything about this person, but was making me look for quill and pen. And I was searching through my parents' artwork to find their quill and pens, and I found them. They were rusty, too old. I actually thought online, okay, maybe I need to buy some. Maybe I'm just having an inkling to return to my parents' roots, of doing quill work. I never did any of this, but it was just all of a sudden. And I thought, okay, this has got to be somebody else who's doing this. And I could feel the energy closer and closer. But eventually I got out my tab. I tried to explain to this individual, I use a computer now. Otherwise I have to transcribe and do all the rest. They didn't get that. They really were adamant about me doing it in a handwritten form, and they wanted a quill. But I have a new wonderful device called a Remarkable, and its little pen can be made to write like quill and ink. And so I asked him, would you play with this? I still didn't know who this individual was. I said, play with this, see if this feels good in my hands. So I had him use my hands, and he would play, and pretty soon all the curly cues and everything else were going. And then he tried to write a message to me, but I was so like, who is this? So much in my head that I just couldn't get things. It was flowing, but I had a lot of questions through it. So the next time he wrote, he just went to town with it. And so this was just about a week ago. And finally he signs his name is Emmanuel Swedenborg.
Oh, yes. Wow.
I've never heard of him because I'm not really educated, and I had no idea who this guy was. And see, obviously, some of you guys know who he is. But so there you go. So I don't know if the writing he used was at all like his. All I know is he needed that format. And Eleanor Roosevelt needed me to put my laptop. She wanted me to open my old click-clack typewriter and set it on my bed, and I said, I don't think so.
Her handwriting.
How about me using my laptop? And so, but she insisted I sit down on the bed to type my letter. That I could do, but I wasn't going to carry a typewriter in there. Anyway, so it's an interesting. Automatic writing has just been such a fascinating thing for me because that's how they talk to me when they really have to get their final message through.
Thank you. Eleanor Roosevelt's handwriting is in one of my books. It's a very strong writing.
Read her piece. She's in the Cosmic Voices, and I was not expecting her at all, and that took me a long time to even acknowledge that she could possibly want to talk to me. I said, there's so many mediums out there. Go find somebody else.
Dan, what is the future of Cosmic Voices? What do you see? Where do you see it going? And what would you like to see its impact?
I'd like to see more of the same. And I understand that there are a few messages that Jeanne and or Regina have picked up recently that we haven't put on the site yet. But as soon as we work on them, they'll be up on the site.
I'm just speaking for the people here. The impact of them is extraordinary. As far as I can see, there is nothing like it. What's exciting is that it's recent, and the people that are commenting on it are saying that when they read the voices, they experience it. They actually feel the emotion. They say, it's like I'm talking to that person.
Well, a lot of these messages seem to come straight from the heart.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is Neil Armstrong's account of his own passing. And I won't say anything about it, but just to highly recommend that people read that one.
Do you ever have any blowback from the relatives of the person who comes through? Sort of saying, yeah, Jeanne?
That's an interesting question, because I can't remember now, but I've gotten a lot of people responding to Cosmic Voices, and I got a message from someone the other day, and she said, she asked about Alan Rickman, and she said, have his relatives, gotten this message? And she said, if not, she said, I have a friend who has a cousin who is related to Alan, and this is how you could get hold of that cousin. And that's the closest I think we've come to any of this, because we haven't, sent anything out to the families. And I thanked her for that. It's a kind of a weird place to be with it, because we got so burned. I mean, so burned with the families of the Challenger crew, because what the government had told them about us. That is another Zoom. Very interesting. Yes. Anyway, we have just really felt that we're just putting it out there. If it happens to travel to them, Kobe Bryant said, my wife would never, ever want to hear this, that she would just automatically think it was some kind of fraudulent attention-getting, money-grabbing scheme. He said, but I know who you are. And he said, I just still have to write about, what happened. And he said, whether she gets it or not, I don't know that she would receive it very well. So he said, it would be good to have other people, to do it. So he was writing it, and even understanding that he didn't really want it to go to his family. So there you go.
Well, there have been few that I have actually asked, but most of mine, the passing of them, they are most of the ones I've used for Cosmic Voices are long past, but I have not reached out to anybody as far as contacting, for the same reason that Jeannie was talking about. We've both been under a rock for a long time and just doing things quietly, and we've never done any of this stuff to get any kind of monetary gain or fame or do it. There's plenty of individuals who can do that, and greatly so. We're just trying to get the message that is important. And I feel like the clients on the other side of the veil, they're my clients. And
Absolutely.
their pay has been profound. I'll tell a quick Robin Williams. It wouldn't be 2 minutes. Mine was, and this is the first time I had met him, I was caregiving my mother for almost 17 years and taking good care of her and all this. And I came back from a very long day at the hospital. And I just sat outside on the deck, and I just started crying. And I said, oh, God, I need a really stupid joke. And I had never met Robin at the time. And here he shows up in his Mork and Mindy costume, only he was wearing big clown shoes. And he goes, a duck walks into the bar. And I'm going, okay, what are you doing here? And he turns around to the other side of the deck and he goes, a duck walks into the bar. And I said, okay, the next time he'll turn around. It's just like, it was so stupid. It was just so stupid. it's just so stupid. Yeah, whenever he does some dumb things, it's him. He and John Denver made me buy some things I didn't realize I was all of a sudden having cravings for food I never eat. Red Whips and a few other things. And I got into the car and I just started noshing, and then I hear all the laughter in the back of the car. And it's the two guys. And they're just laughing because I'm eating their favorite food. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, I just don't eat this kind of stuff. It's just, they do this all the time. And if it's not them, it's somebody else sitting in the car smoking or doing something else. And the Challenger crew has showed up on a whim and singing songs. And it's just, I know I'm not crazy, but boy, sometimes it feels like it. I'm singing away. There's nobody in the car, and yet it's packed full of people.
Can I say one more thing about Robin Williams when you talk about he seems to be so active and around? Because he's so strong with me right now, and he's really had to bite his tongue, because if he could, he would have taken over this whole last half hour. And he says, but I'm not ready for the next time, show me the contract. But the whole reason that he wants to be so active, he said, I suffered so needlessly because of what was going on in my brain and how it was working. And he said, if I had really, really understood the concept of being eternal and that this was a temporary part of my learning curve, I would have been able to forgive myself so much more effectively and honored what I created and why. He said I could never fully know why this was my life. And he said, I had a great life, but I had my demons like so many. And he said, I just want to help people be free of their pain and their sorrow and their suffering. And he said, I'll do that to the ends of my creation if that's what it takes. And that's what he's saying to all of us right now.
Patrick Swayze, did he ever mention the effect of the movie that he did on Ghost? Did that have an impact on him?
Well, he uses a lot of those references in that movie when it comes to us, good and bad. But he believed in mediumship because when he was so ill, they did contact, it's in his book, they contacted different healers and spiritualists. So he was open to that. He says, somebody wants to talk to me. He's so amazed because he said, Robin always gets all the attention. And he goes, and I'm the one with the beautiful body. But anyway, Patrick said, absolutely, the movie did open a window on a doorway for him. He said, but really what opened things up for me, and I've never heard him say this before that I remember, he said, when I was in the actual active dying part, when you're actively dying, and he said, and the light and the beauty and the sounds, he said there was music beyond anything that I could possibly explain to you. And he said it seemed like it was hours and hours and hours of this, but it probably was only a few moments. And he said I had an awakening on my death, is what he said. I mean, he's very open to it, but he was so desperate to stay alive. He says that I really wasn't as inclusive as I possibly could have been. But he said I had this epiphany upon my death, and it just never stopped. Everything just kept rolling in this beautiful. And he goes, and I've gone to Demi, and I've talked to her, and we've had conversations, and I've gone to other people. There are a lot of Hollywood people who feel all of us around them all the time, but they don't go on record just because of how that looks. So that's what, yeah.
I'm not a medium, and I'm really curious what would happen. What would it be like if he did take over here today? Or with us now in video.
Oh, if like Robin took over?
Yeah, like you said, he was to take over. What would that
be
like?
You could be in hysterics.
Yeah, you would be laughing your head off. And
what would we see? I'm sorry, I'm not a medium.
Oh, well, you still see me. Such as that is, and we're both Scottish, so we have that going on. But he said, if I could make her nose grow, I would have come in here a long time and done other things too. But, she has her boundaries. That's the kind of thing you experience, because that's the kind of things he would say. It would just be, he loves to entertain. And he really loves to entertain people who are open and receptive, not for the glory of it, but just for the humanity of it and for the fun of it. You would probably see my face change a bit. I said actually last night, I think was that Mary Beth I was talking to, and I said, Mary Beth, I finally have to come to think that I'm on the spectrum. And she laughed, because I said, I never know what part of me is going to come through and talk. Because sometimes I see myself on video and I go, who is that? But it's a part of me. I'm not necessarily channeling another entity that I'm aware of. But yeah, sometimes faces change. It would be mannerisms. It's mostly the voice and just the dialogue and such that comes through. All of them have been getting you ready. I've been aware of it all week long, that these people that are on Cosmic Voices, many of them have been with you to get you to this moment so that you really enjoy it. So of course you're going to have those experiences. You're all in the fan club.
This is a thought world, and everything we think is supposed to create things in the afterlife, if we're thinking of that. And I'm wondering, a lot of these things would be negative because created by fear and what might happen. Now, if these things, creations are there negatively, well, the ones who are resonant with that on this side would then tune into that. But what does it take to destroy these things? Can we dissolve these negative entities and creations? Can somebody else do that,
Oh, that's a whole class. That's a whole class.
Yeah, that's not a 1 minute question. That's
No.
a very, very viable, wonderful.
You've got to come back. You've got to come back.
It's a very good question. And just briefly say, the more we are centered in our beingness and our essence, the more we remove our own fear and the more love we're able to be infused with, the more things change. That's where we operate from, is from the beauty of our own essence, and to clear the traumas that we've had and clear the negative ideas. And that's why I do the SRT work, and all of you do the work that you do. Because when we get to that point of really being without fear, then the love just is there. And it's powerful. It's powerful beyond measure. And there are many stories I could tell you about that. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thanks very much. Incredible presentation. It's just a question for Jane, really. When you talk about the trauma of the people going across, some of my experiences have been actually physically going through that trauma when you bring someone through or someone steps in. And it's quite upsetting in a way, but is it, or do you think that it's their own trauma from when they actually passed? Or is it because they finally got through to who they needed to get through to? I can expand that a little bit. When I met my first guide, the vision that I got was a ship burying itself into the sea, and it was the steersman of the ship. There was eight on board plus him, and the ship didn't come up, and it was in a development circle, and they said, the medium said that, did you feel the pain in your chest, because he'd had a heart attack at the wheel? And I said, no, I didn't feel the pain of the heart attack, but actually when I came back, there was three of them round us, and the tears were actually running down my face. Very traumatic. And it was it him? was it him getting his trauma that he was carrying out, or was it, or did I just actually feel his trauma when it happened? Would he put that on me?
Oh, it wasn't a matter of him putting anything on you. So that when you lose your energetics, you both were experiencing that. You had a shared
Right.
experience. So, and your tears would be the compassion you had for him as to what he was going through. And then you actually helped him release that just by being in his space with your love and compassion for him.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Right. Thanks very much, Jeanne.
I'm wondering, there doesn't seem to be as much emphasis in spiritualism about mediums helping people from the other side to heal. There are a few groups that do rescues, but unfortunately, some of the modern spiritualists say nobody needs rescuing, everybody goes straight to the light. We don't have to do anything. The spirit world is perfectly able to handle it.
Well,
any thoughts on that?
Oh, yes.
Wow. Okay. I'll let you do it because I can see, I'm watching your feathers ruffle and mine are ruffled, but
perhaps we could have a whole talk on this, but I think
it's an important subject.
To me, it's a
Wendy.
very important topic about the whole role of spiritualist mediums.
It's a very wonderful point. When I was first trained in spiritualism, because I was training to be a spiritualist minister, but I couldn't, it was the national organization of spiritualism, and I couldn't support some of their ideas because I just felt them to be different. For instance, I wasn't allowed to talk about reincarnation in the spiritualist church that I went to because some of them didn't believe in it. That's not even considering what Richard was saying, was just that this didn't happen. The experience was my teacher. You know, I had this experience, so I knew it was real, and I had them over and over again. There is this tendency with the younger generation, oh God, I'm going to sound terrible, please forgive me, to just, and it's not everybody, because I work with some brilliant younger people, where it's just, you know, la-di-da, go to the light, everything's fine. If you're in the light, everything's fine, go into the light. And I can tell you that I've had a few people who have refused to understand that there is chaos in this particular reality that's always going to be here. It's part of what goes on here. It's part of us, whether we choose the light or the dark in our evolution and how we work through that, fear or love. And there are things that you need to do to protect yourself energetically, as well as all the above. And I had one particular gentleman who was quite a healer, and I was trying to share this with him because he was seeking me out as a mentor. And he refused. And then he called me 6 months later and goes, oh my God, I'm in so much trouble with all this darkness. What, could you help me? And I said, no, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I just hung up. It's like, you know, people have to go through their own experiences. It's frustrating, but if this is what this group needs to do, I find that certain spiritualistic groups are very narrow-minded. My friend Mary Beth is on, had experience with a couple of mediums that used to come from Britain every year, and had all sorts of problems health-wise, this and that. And she asked them, well, you know, do you do this for yourself? Do you do that for yourself? Do you protect yourself this way? Oh, no, my guides do it. And it's like, take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your gifts, for what you do. Everything is energy. We need to be very mindful of the fact that everything is energy, yada, yada, yada. So they're going to learn, or they're not going to learn. But it can be a little disturbing because we've worked hard to clear ourselves, to develop our skills and our talents. And then you have some people that are just like, oh, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And it's like, okay, well, if that's their reality, then unfortunately or fortunately, they're going to be learning through that. You know, it's just, it's simple. And even Paramahansa Yogananda says, when you die, if you're messed up, you're going to be just as messed up on the other side when you get over there. I remember that. It really stuck out for me because I love his energy and his consciousness. And he said, you take it with you. You know, it doesn't just disappear. So anyway, that's a very small snippet for a very deep subject.
I believe it was Ram Dass who said very simply, you take everything with you but the body.
Yep.
I think it's a very important topic that we speak about because I really believe that mediumship or channeling or reading have all being psychic, all conglomerated into one thing called spiritualism. And it may all be that. I really don't understand all of the terminology, except that it has become a cafeteria style belief as well. I'll have a little of this one and a little of this one and a little of this one because this is what suits my skill level. And that's understandable. But in the process of not branching out or exploring the great religions of the world and having understanding that they're all speaking a truth, how do we teach them that there is so much more? And we know very, very little. We just know very little, even as we speak about all this. So I just kind of tune people out when they start talking that way. I don't argue because that's the way they believe. But if you ended up having a conversation on it, I think it would be a really wonderful one.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And particularly, I'd like to thank our guests today. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I think anybody like to give some feedback?
Thank you so much to the three of you for taking your time out to spend with us. It was fascinating. I have had Robin Williams' experience as well, so it was lovely to hear all those stories. And I think that everybody's going to have a lot to mull over for the next week. So thank you.